Hi, and welcome back to Rate That Up, back and forth album review between myself, Joseph Fremming, and my good friend Paul Muad'Dib. Paul, are you red? Why?
I am red. Why? I still don't understand that, but it's a thing.
Yeah. This week, Paul spun the wheel on the wheel of shit and landed right on the 1985 album Cut the Crap by a once legendary band, The Clash. Paul, what are your thoughts on The Clash? I became a fan of them, and I can talk about that after you. What's your relationship with this band?
So I hung out with punks at the Java Joint, and I was a big fan of punk in general, and The Clash being one of them. Now, in the terms of punk, I've always considered The Clash as an outlier of punk, just because when you listen to them, it's not that standard classic what you think is punk in my mind. Like, I don't think of it like the Vandals or say God damn it, I know all these punk names and they're just eluding me right now. Point is that The Clash to me was always kind of an outlier that dabbled in punk but wasn't really punk. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they were the punk band, the first wave that kind of just said this is too limiting and really just expanded musically more than probably any other punk band in history.
Yeah.
I think that's why they generally, when people talk about like the greatest punk bands of all time, Clash is usually number one with a bullet.
Yep. And among the pure punk scene, they were considered traitors. Yes. I remember that very well of some of the punk groups. I remember a conversation and with a guy named Drew, who was a gutter punk that I hung out with. And he talked about how The Clash was just a big finger to punk music and basically killed punk in his eyes.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that, because this is where so punk kind of sprung out of a reaction to stadium bands. Basically, it grew out of like people just moving out of the garages and finding clubs in the late 70s and being more interactive with the audience, more aggressive than say bands like Pink Floyd or Boston or Yes. It was very much like it was a reaction to what was popular at the time, and The Clash came out of that. But the thing is, punk really became stagnant due to these people. They became very Puritan with it, which is the opposite of what punk was.
Yeah, absolutely. No, punk. Yeah, no, you're completely right on that. Continue.
Yeah, so fans became very Puritan, and so if bands didn't stick to the three chords and attitude, a segment of this community would just call them traitors. In the documentary Westway to the World, it's a Clash documentary I actually own. Joe Strummer responds to this. Joe Strummer is the rhythm guitarist and singer and main lyricist of The Clash. His response was, "We were never your toy to begin with," which is just a great fuck you to that sentiment. Like, and so yeah, there's that segment that just holds on to like it. And they won't see it this way, but to me, that segment of punks are just as phony as the people they claim are phony. If you know what if that makes sense. They are more style than substance.
It does. Like, again, I hung out with a lot of anarcho punks, and I'll be completely honest with you, none of them are except for one. There's one, and I think we both know the guy. Who will be a punk and be a punk till the day he dies. Zach. I can say his name because I'm not worried about him listening to the show or anything like that. Great. He's great. Zach was a great guy. But everyone else that I hung out with, like the gutter punk that I was saying, Drew, last time I saw him, he was a last time I saw him at a premiere video or a family video years later and like years ago, and he was dressed all in hip hop. Like he looked like he wanted to be a member of the NWA.
Yeah, so that kind of people like that typically just they're playing the role, and they like the fashion and like the surface ethos of the genre. And that's where so the Clash did their first 2 albums, which were very much in line with that, and then they did London Calling in '79, and that is like a landmark.
London Calling is one of the greatest albums out there. I don't give a fuck who says it.
It's in my top 5, honestly. It's in my top 5 because it took that attitude and expanded the sound without sounding disingenuous about it.
Yeah. Yep. And then Combat Rock, also high up on my list of albums that I love.
Yeah. And then in between those two, they did a very weird experimental album with like hip hop loops and stuff called Sandinista.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one.
20 years after I've bought it, I'm still struggling to sit through it just because it's so different.
Interesting.
That's not saying it's bad, but at least it's artistically, I can appreciate it, even though I struggle with it, just because it's not an easy listen to. And so that kind of piggybacks on, this band was not afraid of taking chances.
Right.
So then we land in, so praising these guys, there's 4 principals. Paul Simonon, I'm butchering his name, but he was the bassist. Mick Jones was the music guy. He was the only one who really knew how to play music in the band. Drummer Topper Heaton, he was like the other guy who knew how to really play instruments, and Joe Strummer, the lyricist, the edge, if you will, the raspy vocals, the things that people associate with punk. And so we're talking about Cut the Crap, which comes out after Combat Rock, which we both agree is a great album. Yep. That album kind of broke them into new areas because it had 2 singles off it that did pretty well. Rock the Casbah and Should I Stay or Should I Go?
Yes, which my favorite song on that album is Straight to Hell.
Yeah, Straight to Hell. And they did that on Saturday Night Live, I think, and that's a really good live performance of that. Yes,
one of their best songs.
Yeah. And so they start finding the success, and then so the story of this album really comes down to a bad manager trying to be in the band.
Didn't we talk about this already?
This is a very common thing in music that not even the punks were immune to. Yeah. So they hired a manager, Bernie Rhodes, who was fired before for butting heads with Mick Jones. He came up with some sort of contract, I think it was either with a label or with himself, that Mick Jones flatly refused to sign because he had enough problems with the guy. So you get enough whispering and all that, and plus internal conflicts between Strummer and Jones because they were, for lack of a bet, they were the Lennon McCartney and Jagger Richards, of this genre. They were the big names, and their creative, interpersonal relationship just blows out. Strummer has Jones fired, and then they also fire Topper Heaton, their talented drummer, due to heroin-ish drug addiction, mostly heroin, which is not that's not too scandalous. But firing the guy, your main co-songwriter, never bodes well.
Yeah,
never. So they fire him, and they hire three unknowns to join the band. 2 more guitarists. So now the Clash has 3 guitarists, like they're fucking Leonard Skinner. And a drummer. They hire these guys, yet they don't if they appear on the album, it's bare minimum because the drummer was replaced with a drum machine, and
God,
so you have that, and then so they set about to record this album, and this is where things start going south. Strummer told people a lot of the conflict was that they're more melodic and they're having these pop hits, and I don't know if Strummer felt it was like going against their punk image, which is just the dumbest thing to be worried about if you're at this stage in your career, but it is what it is. So that's one of the reasons Jones was let go, and he started telling people this album is going to be back to basics, more street punk, like their debut album, The Clash.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
I didn't know punk bands had a mariachi band.
as you can tell, that is not what happened. I could have appreciated if they were just trying to mimic the first album. At least it might. There's no way this album's going to be good. But what happens is when they start recording it, Bernie Rhodes decides, well, first they're like, well, anybody can write a punk song. So they kind of seeing what the other guys can do. This is not a good idea because yes, anybody can write a punk song. Not a lot of people can write good punk songs. And that was then just trashed. And then Bernie Rhodes decides he's going to be the music now that Mick Jones is gone. And then Strummer and him clash over the production of this and the making of it. And I swear to God, and I watched some YouTube videos of critiques, and this has come up. It sounds like on half the tracks, he doesn't even care anymore. Like he himself knows that this is an embarrassing album.
Right.
Joe Strummer. It's just a mess. There is one this album is so bad, it's never been a part of any of the box sets they've released. Mick Jones and Paul Simonon have stated that it's not really even considered a Clash album to them, since half the established band isn't even on it. Joe Strummer disowned it. There's one track on here, This Is England, that people generally consider okay, and that has appeared on some of the compilation albums, which I guess I don't have it's an all right song. It's not the best Clash song, but
it's the best on the album.
I've heard worse Clash songs with their classic lineup, so I'm not going to shit on that too much. But so they record this album. Strummer's he's upset about the production because, again, he's batting heads with this chucklehead manager who's, again, he's this Bernie Rhodes guy, man. He's got a history, and they're going to plan a tour after the album's released, and Strummer vanishes to Spain, and nobody can get a hold of him. At one point, he considered suing the label to not release the album. He basically says, I'm not touring anymore. He wants to disband the band. There's a brief window between that where Bernie Rhodes goes to the other guys in the band and say, hey, we can replace them because the Clash has always been more of an idea, not the guys.
Oh, my God.
The dumbest fucking premise you could ever imagine. I mean, even Kiss needs at least a couple original members.
Oh,
Gore needs at least a couple original.
Gore needs a couple. Yeah. Yep.
So that happened. That's being batted around. Meanwhile, Mick Jones is he put out lawsuits to ban them from using the name The Clash, which results in the song, the cringy "We Are the Clash." From this, it was just a mess. Strummer then disbands it. He's like, the Clash is over. And ironically, his next project is he works on Mick Jones's Big Audio Dynamite album, co-producing and co-writing songs on it. So, yeah, it's a very weird set of circumstances where you can almost just straight up blame a bad manager on everything that went wrong with this.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And the weird part is, and listening to it, the production is a huge what the fuck throughout. But there is like one or two songs. Yeah, two songs that I kind of like. There's moments where I think if they would have just changed the lyrics, it would have been a better song. But overall, this album became its own. The title alone is like the perfect 1-star Amazon review of itself.
So you're gonna disagree with me here, but I didn't think it was that bad of an album.
That's fine. There's a lot of people who actually like this quite a bit. It's gotten like, upon over the years, people seem to appreciate it. Like I said, there's two songs on here I really like, but the rest I'm just.
And what are those two songs, may I ask?
3-Card Trick.
Okay.
Which is, so I like 3-Card Trick because it's weird. This dynamic in theory shouldn't work, but Joe Strummer's raspy vocals works incredibly fucking well with reggae.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love that. And I like This Is England.
This Is England could be so. If I may, what I felt about this album was I did not look into this album because I really wanted to hear the story from you. I thought you were going to tell me that this was more of like a B-side album, like these were tracks that were left out, and that they just kind of came together, and the remaining members came together and just kind of made work. That was my thought with the whole thing. So I'm kind of surprised to hear that this was like an actual cohesive, we went in and started from scratch album.
You could technically call it that. Paul Simon and the bassist only, even according to the Wikipedia entry, plays on some songs.
Yeah, like I said, it felt like to me like this was a lot of like B-sides and just unfinished works that they went back and finished.
Yeah. Which is weird because, again, they had that back to basics, and a lot of this sounded like outtakes from Combat Rock.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It sounded like a lot of leftover, Combat Rock tracks. And, I mean, I'm sorry, but Movers and Shakers, when you have that mariachi trumpet going, that is the farthest thing that you can go from punk rock. I was giggling like a schoolgirl when I heard that. I was like, I was listening in the car with my wife, and I went, "Is that a mariachi band?" And she just went, "I don't know."
Yeah, and the thing is, like, they have like these really anthemic tracks and choruses, which I really like. It's oddly buried in the mix and with very cringy lyrics, especially "We Are the Clash." Like, that could have been a better song than it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, "We Are the Clash" should have been a better song than what it was. It's "We Are the Clash" by the Clash. It should have been a better song.
Well, Lord. I mean, if you're gonna do Mark II of your band, you shouldn't have to have a statement song. "We Are the Clash." Like, people know who you are. You already have. This is your 6th album. Like, nobody's confusing you with anybody.
Well, that feels more like a middle finger to the other two members, doesn't it?
Yeah. Which is, if you're going to do a middle finger, you might as well. If you're going to middle finger former members, it better be like "No Vaseline" by Ice Cube.
Right? Or put like a tinny snare drum in there for the whole. Yeah, say "fuck you" to the old drum, to the old bassist. So basically, what we're talking about is this is Metallica's Saint Anger Mach 1, is what you're telling me here.
In a sense, it was mostly session musicians, drum machines, Joe Strummer and Bernie Rhodes.
Huh.
Yeah, which kind of goes also against that whole concept of you're a punk band and you want to go back to basics, and you're using session musicians and drum machines. Like, what makes you any different from Gilmer at this point?
God damn it, Gilmer!
Yeah, Cut the Crap is the momentary lapse of reason of punk.
Yeah. It sounds like it. It sounds like it. That is yeah, it is their momentary lapse of reason, but with better tracks, unfortunately.
Yeah, at least better, more catchy tracks. Although, so I knew right away the production on this was fucked before when I read up on any of it. I had a certain idea from old interviews I read with Joe Strummer. Yeah, he's like just one of my musical and philosophical heroes. The guy was just fucking great. But when it starts off with the Dictator, and the television sample is at the same volume as your band track, and it doesn't relent.
So both times, there was 3 times I was listening to this. Or I mean, in the car. I've listened to this album a lot, by the way, for this. But the first time in the car, and I was listening by myself, and I was like, I was looking at my cell phone. I was like, is YouTube playing on my phone? And turn it down. I realized, no, it's coming from the album. I'm driving with my wife, and she turns it down. She's like, did you hear like someone talking? I'm like, yeah, no, it's the song. And she's like, oh my God, that's obnoxious. Then I'm driving with my daughter, and she's like, is the radio on with the Bluetooth?
I seriously thought that too when I was driving around listening to this running errands today. I was like, Jesus, is like somebody playing like a really loud TV somewhere or a radio, like talking radio? It was like, oh Christ, it's
it's so bad. There was very, very poor production.
Yeah, that to me was like, that was the hint of like, there's songs on here, if you stripped away the highly questionable production value, like this would have been a lot better album. But there's still just like some of the cringier things, Dirty Punk, which followed this. I was just like, oh God, you guys already have your punk credentials. You don't need to, like.
It was cringy. Dirty Punk was cringy.
It's just, what are you doing? Like, they're obviously at this point they're lost at sea. With your main music guy who was your songwriting partner for how many years, you fire him, and this is where a band is, they've lost one of their legs, and like they're trying to walk, but they're hobbling and falling all over.
Yeah, they lost the plot with that one. So let's talk about lowlights on this. Since we're there, Dictator, I hated it. Just again, it was poorly mixed. Yeah, Dirty Punk.
Yeah, Dictator, I think would have been a better song if they just cut out the television sample.
Yeah,
or used it as like an accent instead of a part of the band.
Yes. Yeah, Dirty Punk wasn't that great. We Are the Clash was serviceable. It was serviceable.
Yeah.
Are You Red? Why? What the fuck is that? Cool Under Heat. I have the chorus isn't that great. Movers and Shakers. Again, the mariachi made me laugh, so I was all for it. Like when I heard that mariachi trumpet, I was like, all right. All right.
I thought I was having a stroke, honestly.
Yeah, no. Is that what a stroke's like?
I smell burnt toast and hearing mariachi music.
Yeah, so really the whole side A is shit. Then you get to the B side, it
kind of picks it up. It's kind of
which has the better songs on it. It has This Is England, 3-Card Trick, North and South, and Life is Wild, which are now. Of all these songs, only one made it to my playlist, which was This Is England.
Yeah.
But there was definitely way more serviceable
Yeah, there was more potential, I think, on the second side of this album.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
It seems like, so the second side, it seemed like there was just more of an effort. It was more interesting. Like, if they would have just scrapped side A, released this as an EP, and worked a little harder on side B as an EP, I think it would not be as derided as it is. I mean, it already has the baggage of being the one album that doesn't have all the classic members on. That's just what always going to happen with those sorts of, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Genesis works. Pink Floyd, not really. This kind of falls in between, maybe. It's not as good as their heyday, but it's serviceable, like you said.
Yeah, it's serviceable, which again, I mean, I think at the time, I can imagine when it came out, people were pissed, but over time, it's not that bad. And I could have seen, I would like at least one more Clash album, kind of seeing where they would have gone with it. Honestly, I think if they had switched side A and side B, I think it probably wouldn't be as awful. I mean, I could see where people didn't make it to the fucking B side.
Oh, absolutely, Paul. Absolutely. I barely made it to the B side.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's kind of it. Also, you get the B side, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't so bad. But the mariachi band kind of pissed everybody off. And don't get me wrong, I love a good mariachi band.
And it's good. And I really like Three Card Trick. And what I like about Three Card Trick is it kind of gives us a glimpse into what Strummer's solo work was going to be.
Yes,
his solo work really had that reggae vibe. Like, he had a studio in Jamaica, and man, like, I really love his solo albums. And like this is like, because I haven't heard this album really ever before this. It's kind of cool to see the DNA of that.
Yeah,
in this.
Yeah. And the thing about this guy went on to do fucking soundtracks.
Oh, God. Grosse Pointe Blank soundtrack he did. He was super talented. He produced the Pogues.
Yep. And I love the Pogues. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had the Pogues whiskey, but I don't like whiskey, and it's goddamn good whiskey.
Oh, I'll have to look into that. I'm not a whiskey guy either. I don't like hard alcohol. It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah, no. I'm not a fan of whiskey either, but I saw it at my local liquor store, and I was like, was having a party coming up. Like, I'm totally gonna buy the Pogues whiskey. I thought everyone was gonna be like, "Oh, cool, Pogues whiskey," and I'm like, "It's Pogue whiskey," and people are like, "What? Who?" I'm like, "God, why am I friends with you right now?" But it's actually really, really good fucking whiskey.
I'll have to check that out. If I was there, I would have known Paul.
I would have been. I would next time I have it. Next time I have a party, you can come down here. Once
I'll bring my Metallica beer with me.
Nice. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. You can fucking when Voldemort D is over with.
Yeah.
Okay, Voldemort D.
Goddamn Voldemort.
Goddamn Voldemort ruining my shit. You're ruining my shit, Voldemort. You and Gilmer.
God damn it. But yeah, so getting back to this album, it's not a total wash. Like we've said, the side B there's the potential. I don't know why it's buried by the avalanche of horseshit that is side A, but even then, it's not the worst stuff. We've heard worse on this.
We've heard worse.
Like, this is
this Amanda Lear. This is not.
No, Saint Anger. This is not. It's a band that lost two vital members. Due to out of their control, drug addiction is what it is. The other was them just tripping over their own dick and firing like the most talented guy in their band.
Well, and this, I know we pulled from the list of shit, the wheel of awful here, Joe. You're gonna have to dig deeper because is I mean, maybe this was like I lucked out, and this was like the
I
most
think
serviceable.
you lucked out. I
Okay.
think you lucked out.
Lucky number 7, people. Lucky number 7. So what were kind of? I mean, do we know what the reviews were at the time and like the reception of it? Like what people were saying at the time?
The reception was generally negative. It just it was the production style a lot. It just was not. It wasn't generally well liked, and it when the guy who made the album, Joe Strummer, doesn't like it, that's kind of going to be shared. It's gotten a new life as people are able to like break away from the baggage of, I think when this came out, a lot of people were, oh, you fire. It's never good when you fire members from your band. Yeah, and that kind of jades public perception of that. It also, this is now almost 40 years later, and I think people have, while not generally embracing it as like London Calling, I think there's a lot of people who are just kind of warmed up to it in a sense.
Well, and I'll say this.
I mean, its peak position in the U.S. Billboard 200 was 88.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. But it's also following a combat rock. So
yeah. And this is what I was going to say. This is something I really wanted to say about this album, which was, is it a bad album? Is it a bad Clash album? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Is it a bad album? I mean, the Clash are, regardless of what it is, it's still the Clash, and the Clash are really good. But I mean, even with Mick Jones gone, but in terms of like a bad album, I didn't come away from a headache. I didn't come away being like angry like I have with some of our other albums that we've listened to. But at the same time, it was depressing. I mean, it's years away from the Clash, like from when I was really into punk and into the Clash and things like that. So it was far enough away that I was able to kind of go, this isn't that bad. Like I said, I really thought I was going to hear like they fired the person, they fired Mick Jones, and then they just had a bunch of leftover stuff, and Joe Strummer and the remaining members just filled in the void on what was missing on those tracks, and this is what you got. Because it really does, like I said earlier in this, feel like a leftover album of their other works, and not a true solo. Yeah.
Well, it's probably, to me, feels more solo, like a Strummer solo album, just because of the marked absence of Mick Jones and his pop sensibilities, which kind of, his songs broke up more of the Strummerish angst, which was, was nice, and he kind of added a little sheen to it and tightened songs up and could play guitar, and we'd get little solos instead of whatever the fuck we were hearing on this album.
Yeah, whatever the fuck we got.
I don't want to call them solos because I'm not sure if that's what it legally should be called. But
yeah, it's something. But again, I will say I was grateful. I was, at the end of the day, I was grateful considering that we pulled this from the wheel of shit. That I was like, okay, all right, I don't hate life right now. Like, I didn't come into this hating life. That said, I wasn't entirely no, and that's boy howdy. But as far as, I guess, let's get to recommendations. I'll start. I'd recommend side B. Look at it as an EP and listen to This Is England, 3-Card Trick, Play to Win, Finger Pop, and that look at it as an EP. Forget the whole first side, forget the first 6 tracks, and focus on the last 6 tracks. That's my recommendation.
But even then, This Is England will probably be the only one of those that'll make it on any mix.
It's the only one that made it on my mix. It was the only one.
It's the only one that'll make it on any of my mixes. It's just,
and again,
it just felt kind of half baked at times too. So it's hard to justify putting any of these other songs on there.
It is, and I will say again, we've listened to albums where I'm absolutely putting nothing from this album on my mixes. So the fact that we walked away with one was a win.
You didn't put any Mandolier on any of your mixes?
I didn't put any music from The Elder on my list. Oh God, what's wrong with me?
Cher covered a song from that.
And Cher can have it. Cher did a better job, damn it.
A World Without Heroes, Paul.
A World Without Heroes. Oh, God damn my life.
Yeah, I'd recommend maybe the 5 out of the 6 on side B, which not a ringing endorsement, but not the worst we've heard. It suffers from. You can listen when you hear it in the album. There's a key element missing, and that is Mick Jones.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that lack of presence is felt.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
you go in and you got to go in knowing that that's just it's sorely missing, and I think he would have added more to these songs had he not gotten fired.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of songs on here that wouldn't have been put on had he not been fired.
Yeah.
So all right, I want to bring this up because this came across my radar today, and I wanted to bring this up. And this is since we got time, I wanted to discuss with you. I saw What Culture yesterday put out their top 10 perfect rock albums of the 1990s. Did you see this list?
No.
And I wanted to run it by you. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So number 10 for the best albums of the 1990s is Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. Agree or disagree?
Wait, are these perfect albums or just good albums?
Nope. Perfect rock albums. It's titled.
Disagree.
Yeah, it's titled 10 Perfect Rock Albums of the 1990s.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Disagree.
I disagree. There's good songs on there.
Really good songs on that album.
Really good songs on the album, but also a lot of filler.
Yeah.
All right. 10 by Pearl Jam.
Disagree.
Agreed with you. I disagree as well. Wildflowers by Tom Petty.
Disagree.
All right. Blood Sugar Sex
Wait, where
Magic.
do you stand on that?
I'm with you. No, I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. Blood Sugar Sex Magic by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Very much disagree. That is not a perfect album.
It is not a perfect album. No, they had much better albums. The Black Album by Metallica.
It's close, but I'll still disagree.
I mean,
it's very close to a perfect album. You know what? No,
very close.
That's a perfect album. I'll just say it. The Black Album it's pretty solid front to back. It's their lean, mean fighting machine album. All killer, no filler. I'll say it. Black Album's I'm not one to say there are perfect albums, but because I think that perfect's thrown around too loosely, but for the sake of argument for this list, Metallica, I'll give it to them.
Would you say congratulations, metal fans? You now have your equivalent of Dark Side of the Moon to the Black Album?
Dark Side of the Moon's not a perfect. You know what? I take it back. Black Album's not perfect. Dark Side of the Moon's not perfect.
There you go. Yeah, no, they say that in your congratulations, metal fans. You now have your equivalent of Dark Side of the Moon. And I went, no, you don't.
Anything. I can't even think of what would be an equivalent to that, but whatever. Let's go on.
All right, we're moving on, and I have to agree with you that I don't think it's the perfect album. It had a lot of really good songs on it. I don't think it was perfect. Number 5, What's the Story, Morning Glory by Oasis.
No, God, no.
Again, good songs, not the perfect album. Dirt by Alice in Chains.
Nope, a lot of really good songs on it, but that's not a perfect album.
OK Computer by Radiohead.
Nope.
See, I disagree. I do think that's a perfect album.
It's good. It's really good, but I don't think it's a perfect album.
I think it's solid. I mean, there's one track on it, but I thought that was a good palate cleanser. I'm gonna disagree with you and say that I think that's one of the that is a perfect album of the '90s. Number 2, Dookie by Green Day.
Nope.
No, not a perfect album. They had better albums even after that. And number 1 was Nevermind by Nirvana.
Nope.
No. So
Hard
for you,
no on Nevermind from me.
Yeah, was there good songs? Yes. Was there a lot of shit? Yes.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to talk about this, because I was looking at this going, perfect album. For me, there was 1 out of 10. For you, there was 0 out of 10. Yeah. I mean, if you're to sit here and say albums that had great singles of the 90s, I would say, yeah, that's top 10. You know, there might be some here or there. I think there's things that they're definitely missing from the 90s. It's 10 years of fucking music, and you're only giving it 10 albums. But only 1 in my mind was a perfect album.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Perfect albums are few and far between, and none of those, in my mind, were perfect. In fact, almost all of that list is nostalgia porn, I think. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to Nevermind. And I love Pearl Jam 10, but that's not perfect. I mean, it's when people throw around perfect, I think, again, they throw it around loosely, and I cringe when I see that, because I just know I'm not going to find one perfect album on that list, and here we are.
I see, and
I honestly don't think there really is a perfect album.
This is why I brought it up to you, because I know you and I think the same way. When we see the word perfect album, we're going, all right, let's dig in. What do you got for me?
Yeah, and most of that was just nostalgia. Like, I think OK Computer was like their curveball. And I really like OK Computer, but again, I honestly don't think there's a perfect album. It's such a high bar.
It is a high bar.
I have tons of albums, and albums I really, 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 really fucking love, but they all have flaws in them. I mean,
they do.
This podcast alone, we point out the flaws on stuff we enjoy.
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, it's warts and all with us.
Yeah.
We're not going to bullshit you, and we'll tell you what it is and what it isn't. And I think that's what I love about this podcast. You and I can sit there and look at things like that. Again, I also will admit I'm biased when it comes to Radiohead. I am a Radiohead fanboy, like ridiculously. So when I listen to OK Computer, I can listen to that thing all the way through and just I can ride a wave with it. That's why I think it is a perfect album. I can't do that even with Dark Side of the Moon. There's tracks on there I don't want to listen to.
Yep.
On Dark Side of the Moon. So I think you're right, though. I think it's very, very difficult to find, if at all, the perfect album.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it exists. It's such a. There's albums for me that come close, but perfect. It's a very specific word. That it's just it. I think bands should strive to make the perfect album, and I think the ones that do end up with the really good ones. But
yes,
if that was a list of pretty okay albums from the 90s, I would have agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're right. It was total nostalgia porn. That's why I wanted to bring up, because I read the list. I'm like, Joe's got to hear this fucking list, because these are not perfect albums. Like I said, there was the 1 in my mind. I'm like, you guys got 1 out of 10. All right, Joe, what about you for recommendations? What would you say for, I got us off track completely. What is your recommendation?
I would just say side B, EP, listen to that. It's go in and knowing it's not there's a key element missing, and you're going to notice it. But yeah, side B, and listen to that. Otherwise, honestly, this is an easily skipped album of theirs. So
All right. Now,
check it out if you're interested.
Joe, what do you have going on at the Joedown?
Well, last week we did the 1978 When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, a perfect 20-minute short film that got padded out into an hour and a half long schlubby detective noir, but whatever. And now this week we'll be reviewing The Exorcist, one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Excellent. I'm excited to see what Joe's Brown's take's going to be on that one.
I am too.
That's going to be really, really interesting. All right. Well, and all I have is this podcast. So, and like I said, we're caught up. I got to get them up on the Joedown. But other than that, we're caught up. So that's nice. You should see last week's come up tonight on SoundCloud and on YouTube.
Cool.
So, don't you have a question for me, Joe?
Yeah. What's your next pick?
So it's a Halloween. It's October. I love the fact that you're doing Halloween month at the Joedown because Halloween is my Christmas, right?
Same here. I love Halloween.
I absolutely love Halloween. Halloween falls on a Sunday, which is nice because I usually I will spend PTO on Halloween. I will not work on Halloween. And we're going to do Rob Zombie's Dragula.
Dragula? You mean Hellbilly Deluxe?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Hellbilly Deluxe. My God, I have the single. Yes, Hellbilly Deluxe.
Your podcast partner had to tell you the correct. This is already a disaster.
I'm leaving that in. I'm leaving that in. I'm leaving that in. By the way, I will own that. I will own that that error. Yes, we're gonna do Hellbelly Deluxe.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw him on that tour. So,
so you're gonna have a lot to say on that.
Yeah, I will.
That's awesome. So, yep, we will be doing Hellbelly Deluxe, the 13 Tales of Cadaverous Cavorting Inside the Spook Show International, which was his debut solo album without White Zombie.
Yep, and the only solo album of his I've ever enjoyed.
Well, we're going to get into that, aren't we?
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about this and a lot to say about that album and just everything in general because I like to talk about, because there's so many, there's other, like, I listen to albums and I go, man, I really want to do that album, but we've already talked about that artist, so I'm not going to do that for way off, right? So I like to talk about the band and when we're there and we can do it. Genesis and Phil Collins was kind of a there was a lot of overlap there, but that's for good reason. I do think we do need to do a Genesis with just Phil Collins at some point, which I will bring up.
What about the Genesis without Phil Collins from the late 90s?
All stations calling. Trust me, that's on the list. That's on the list, buddy. I know that album name, but I didn't know fucking Rob Zombie's album name. What the fuck's wrong with me? All right, bud. Well, with that, do you want to take us out?
No, God, no.
Joe.